In a Tower High. Chapter 2. Descent. Chapter-specific content warning. Brief reference of the burning of the ships at Lost Scar and starvation and torture. The elf is extremely thin, a level of malnourishment that made Mr Frodo look well-fed in comparison, and it caused Samwise to shake in anger. It's not right that someone can treat another person like this, so callously and without concern for their well-being, for their very life. Someone who very obviously has no care for whether this elf lives or dies. No doubt Sauron himself is the instigator of this. If it's possible for Sam to hate the fallen Maia any more than he already did, then this sight alone is enough to cause him to do so. He's seen plenty of cruelty since he took that first step out of the Shire, but there is just something about this that tips Sam even further over the edge than Mr Frodo being taken by the enemy orcs, almost then enough to slip his one remaining hand out of the manacle that holds him prisoner. The elf is somehow still alive, though he appeared to be made entirely out of bone rather than flesh. His lips are cracked like the long dry clay of an ancient riverbed. They look painful. Sam pulled out one of the precious water skins he and Frodo have left, and slowly dribbled the small stream of water into the elf's mouth, stopping long before the other has had their fill, so that he doesn't start throwing it back up again. Feeding someone who has gone too long without food and water is dangerous. If not done correctly, Mr Bilbo had talked about the long winter, and how even when the starved had been fed, their bodies didn't seem able to remember what to do with food anymore, and many had died. Little and often. Little and often had to be the cure for that. Little is easier enough to provide, for there was precious little food or water left in Sam's possession, and all of Mordor was said to be a desert. There was enough left for kindness, but not enough for waste. Once his mouth was moistened, the elf tried to speak with him, but either because he has not spoken in so long, through injury, or he's speaking an old elvish language that Sam knows nothing of, he can't understand him. The elf looked up at Sam with a resigned look on his face, and said some words in Sindarin that he does understand. Cut it off. Cut it off. His voice shook as he said it, and Sam's never been so glad to have been allowed to sit in Mr Bilbo's lessons for Frodo, even if at the time he hadn't always been all that interested in book learning. Sting's glow is considerably weaker than before, but he was grateful for his added light. That better helps him see the chain. Cutting through the manacle with a sword seemingly entirely too dangerous, but cutting through the chain felt like it might actually be feasible. Don't you worry, Mr Elf. Old Sam will have you free in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. His new elf friend still had his eyes tightly closed as he waited for the blow to fall. Maybe the light is hurting him after so long in the dark, he thought, as he brought down the sword and the thing that tethered him here, to this horrid place. One fair blow of the sword, the chain link it hit all but exploded into tiny pieces which fell tinkling to the floor of the cell. Its metal had grown brittle with the passage of time. The elf looked up at him in shock as he flexed his remaining hand. He was not free of the manacle yet, but the chain at least was gone, and he was free to leave this place should his body be able to support him. Maybe he feared I would miss my aim and injure him, Sam thought, looking with pity at the elf who shuddered below him on the floor. That wasn't an insult. In the same position, Sam would find it hard to trust a stranger to do such a delicate job too, especially if he only had one good arm to begin with. Now, begging your pardon, sir, but my friend was taken prisoner, and I need to find him. So if you can stand, I will take you with me. If you can't, I will leave you some water and lember spread that was given to us by elves, and I shall save my friend and come back for you. Sam was already fishing out some lembas for the elf when he began trying to stand, leaning against the wall for stability. Despite his probably terrible Sindarin pronunciation, it seemed that the other understood what he was saying. The elf's head and shoulders just kept going up and up and up until Sam almost fell backwards just by looking up to meet his eyes. When they made you, they went all in on height, didn't they? Sam said in awe. He was taller than any elf that the Hobbit had seen yet, even taller than Glorfindel, Lord Elrond, or Lord Celeborn, and wider across the shoulders than either Boromir or Aragorn. The elf laughed, though it seemed to pain him. Sam handed him a cake of lembas, and he took only the smallest of bites, something that was likely wise. My name's Sam, he pointed to himself whilst looking to see if the other recognised the introduction. Friend, go find, the elf attempted to say despite his obvious pain. He took several steps towards the door that were surprisingly steady considering his condition. And so they left to find Frodo together, and Sam was grateful to no longer be alone. Now he had Maedhros with him. They took a short moment of time to backtrack in order for Sam to find his new companion, a sword from one of the storage rooms he had already uncovered. Once suitably equipped, the pair forged on, with exploring the rest of the upper tower rooms. There were more storage areas, and what had probably been some high-up man's bedchamber that they stole clothes from, for the elf whose own were in a very sorry state. There was a night shift still serviceable among the pile of moulded and moth-eaten garments. Sam ransacked the drawers and found the elf a pair of breeches that were not so short as to be impractical. He would look a little odd wearing them, but it was better than nothing, especially under the harsh terrain they would have to traverse once they found Mr Frodo. Because it was always best not to get caught with your trousers down, Sam stood watch whilst the elf changed into them. It was a quick affair, and they were soon moving forward again. The next door was flung open as they approached, and a scrawny-looking goblin began shouting at them. I told you that I has plans for this one, and I'm the only one to be... Whatever he was to say next never came. An orc blade had been plunged into his throat, and he fell. The floor soon became wet with black blood. Sam blinked. He hadn't thought that as tall, injured and starved as he was, that the elf would be able to move quite as fast as he had. He panted now as if he had drawn on some last reserve of energy that was now depleted. If you would guard the door, Master Elf, then I shall retrieve Mr Frodo, wherever his condition be, and we shall leave this foul place, Sam said, making sure to pat him on his arm as high up as he could reach as a sort of reassurance that he would be back. Quite how much that had been for himself and not, well, best not to think about that right now. The elf nodded. We must introduce ourselves properly once we're safe. It's not right for me to go around calling you Master Elf for forever and a day when you likely as not have a perfectly good name. Sam rambled. His mother would be rather annoyed at his lack of manners so far from home. He missed the sad smile on the elf's face as he turned back to face the landing. This room was larger than the cell in which he had found the elf, but instead of being bare, there were various tools and pieces of equipment that had only to Sam's eyes use as being for torture implements. Hopefully I've found Mr Frodo soon enough, he thought. His eyes roved the room for signs of life. Something moved near the window under the filthy piece of fabric. The makeshift blanket slid from a pale shoulder, and Sam ran the rest of the distance between them. Mr Frodo, oh, Mr Frodo, Sam has found you, he cried. Frodo sat up and reached out to him with shaking arms. They've taken it, he whispered into Sam's ear. They've taken the ring. All hope is lost. Sam hugged him and replied just as quietly, "They didn't take it. I thought the spider had killed you, and I wanted to finish the quest for you." A dawning look of horror came over Frodo's face, but Sam headed off his panic. "Here it is, Mr. Frodo. I'm giving it back to you now that you're found again." The ring was heavy about his neck, but when he slipped his fingers around the chain it hung from, it seemed suddenly to be as light as a feather. Fear that had been brewing deeper and darker in Frodo's eyes lightened as Sam placed the ring back around his master's neck, though he feared that it weighed him down even more than it had Sam. "Mr. Frodo, we must leave here as soon as we can. I fought my way up here, but there's no telling how many orcs there are still yet that might find us." "I cannot walk, Sam," Frodo said despairingly. "Then, seeing as I can't carry the ring for you no longer, I shall carry you, Mr. Frodo." It was an easy declaration to make. He wrapped Frodo in the blanket then and lifted him in his arms. There was no sight of Mr. Bilbo's mithril coat, and that was a sad loss, but Frodo was alive and in his arms. He was almost to the door before he remembered that he must tell Frodo of their new addition, lest he panic at the sight of him. "When I was looking for you, I found an elf that they had chained here. I have freed him, and he will come with us, at least, to the gate. We must point to him the way to return home," Frodo wheezed, "for he must have been a prisoner here many years." "We will, Mr. Frodo, we will." The elf was still standing in front of the door when Sam returned, and when he saw that Frodo did not have a shirt, he rushed away back to the odd bedroom, returning with a tight inner shirt that he gave to Frodo to wear. It was riddled with tiny moth holes, and Sam felt terrible that Frodo was forced to wear something so unclean. The shirt was a damn sight better than the rancid piece of fabric, and he couldn't use Shire concerns for acceptable dress here in Mordor when it was lucky that anything at all could be found to fit him. "We must leave," the elf said once they had gotten the shirt on Frodo and Sam had him back in his arms. "Take this." There wasn't enough space to carry the vial now, though his hands were both occupied ensuring that Frodo didn't fall. Sting he could thrust into the belt of the orcish armour, but the glass filled with starlight there was no space for. Not even in the bag of provisions he had managed to pull together from his and Frodo's belongings. Armour was not known for its pockets, after all, but the elf did now have pockets to spare. The vial looked almost impossibly small in that large, scarred hand, like a children's toy rather than a treasure. Sam had visions of hanging it as a decoration on the Yuletide tree at some point far in the future, but shook them off. That was entirely too fanciful a thought. He started walking down the stairs, but turned when he didn't hear the elf following him. He was still standing there, holding the vial from Galadriel by the very edge of its tapered silver stopper, as if the thing would explode in his hand. Elves were weird about stars, he recalled, and this one had been held captive in a room where only a singular dim lantern had been his source of light. How long has it been since he's seen the stars? Sam thought. He remembered Frodo saying that the Lady of the Wood had said the star it was made from was the elves' most beloved star. That would explain his facial expression then. It must have been so painful to have been forcefully parted from it. Sting glowed brighter momentarily. They couldn't stand around like this, or they would be found. "We need to go, Mr. Elf," Sam said, contemplating whether to climb back up and attempt to grab a hold of him and drag him down after them. The long fingers of his bony hand closed tentatively around the silver filigree before he shoved it none too delicately into a pocket on the chest of the nightgown and picked up his sword. They descended the tower carefully, ever aware that a great horde of orcs may pop up and surround them at any time, but they found very little resistance in their path. Lying in the courtyard where Sam had caused such a commotion earlier were easily 30 or 40 orc corpses and a fire that was beginning to spread. Banners of the enemy billowed in the wind, created by the heat of the flames, and Sam did then have to push the elf, who had frozen solid in the light of it. Such a fist of terror never before has either of the hobbits seen. Frodo, who had lost all strength in his limbs but not consciousness, translated for Sam the words that had come spilling from his lips in what he thinks is some dialect of Quenya. Brother? No, Loscar was long ago and far away. Sails? No, we're not at the shore. I, 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 I cannot see the stars, as I could not then. A great cloud of ashes covers them. We're in Mordor, Frodo explained gently. He speaks in Sindarin for both his own benefit. He'd never gotten used to the strange lisp Bilbo had insisted that he learn, and Sam's. The ash of the volcano fills the sky, and Sauron's evil does not let fair winds drive it away. His ill magics make it feel as if you're living in a waking nightmare. The elf seems to come back from whatever place and time he had slipped to at seeing the flames the more Frodo speaks to him. Sam left them for a moment, moving to stand in the entrance to the tower where he noticed something that would be of vital importance on their journey to the mountain. He sprinted to a well he spied in the corner of the courtyard and drew as much water as he could, as he dared to, into empty water skins and prayed that it will at least be somewhat potable before the fire makes it impossible to continue. And he darted back once more. There Sam found them, still talking about boats. Let us leave this place and find somewhere to shelter a while, Frodo said when he sees Sam's return laden down with the extra weight of the now full water skins. Sam carried him again, despite his protests, because even though Frodo claims that he can feel his feet again, he's nowhere near steady enough on them to march. All three of them walk for what feels like a solid hour, until they find somewhere to sit where they are not in direct line of sight of every orc in Mordor, a place in which all three members of the party can catch their breath. Now that they have a rejuvenated store of water, Sam made sure to pass a canteen of it around between them. There was no point collapsing from dehydration before they even get to the mountain. The elf dampened the corner of the sleeve of his nightshirt to wipe at his face and hands before he took another bite of the lembas Sam had given him earlier. It's just as small as the one he took before, which is also good. Thank you, the elf said before passing the rest of the wafer square back to the hobbits. Frodo refused to eat. Sam and the elf looked at him concernedly, but Frodo waved them away. He's been eating less and less ever since Moria, though he tried to hide it from the other members of the fellowship. Sam had noticed almost immediately. Now it was profoundly worrying. It seems only right that I should introduce myself to you, Master Elf. What with you helping my dear friend Sam to rescue me? Frodo said, looking up at the elf who towered over them even when he sits beside them on the ground. Beside Frodo, Sam nodded furiously, glad to finally be able to show proper hobbit manners to their companion, now that there was the time and leisure to do so. My name is Frodo, and this is Samwise, or as many call him, Sam, Frodo explained. The elf has turned pale again, almost looks like he's ready to bolt at any moment's notice, but where to is anyone's guess. Before them lies the featureless plain until the mountain rises from it, and to all other sides the encircling mountains are steep and treacherous. It's hard to believe, looking at them, that Frodo and Sam managed to get this far at all. Why are you in this wretched place? He asked. We have been sent on a quest that we hope to fulfill, Frodo explained further, still keeping the nature of their task as vague as he can. This elf seemed good, but there was still a chance that they had fallen into some trick of the enemy. They were practically standing in Sauron's parlour room right now. It was best to proceed with caution. The elf's head snapped around with the same speed that Sam had first seen when he had first seen the vial. You swore an oath? His eyes are wide, and as he reached up with a shaking hand to pull the great mass of his matted hair from his face, Sam saw the burn upon his hand. It was deeply scarred and in the form of what looked like a six-pointed star. He had seen the symbol somewhere before, but he couldn't quite for the life of him remember exactly where. Promises were made between the free peoples to go only as far as we may, Frodo said. It was made very clear to all that they were not an oath, nor were they binding should unforeseen chance or misfortune hit us. Seemingly reassured, the elf seems to calm a little. You bear something terrible, Frodo. Something great and terrible. I can feel it. It tries to tempt me, but it is but a shadow of the evil I have known. There is nothing it can do or promise me that others have not before, and whilst the ill-fated oath I swore in my youth holds strong, this evil thing will have no hold on me. His words are sure, and he held out the vial of Galadriel where the water's light sparkled. Sam squeezed Frodo's knee when he saw that he was about to tell the elf just as much as he had told Faramir. Whether he does it in encouragement or warning was hard to tell. This is a person they know little about, and the fewer that know the true nature of the quest, the safer it will be. They are so close to the end goal now, only a few days of walking. Mount Doom rises from the black soot-covered soil directly ahead of their temporary camp. A journey of 100 miles and months is boiled down to this. We and 7 others, 2 of our own kin, 2 men, an elf of the Sindar, a wizard, and a dwarf set out from Rivendell tasked with destroying a weapon of the enemy. Rivendell? He asked, and looked very confused, as if he had not heard of this place before. To not know of Rivendell must mean he has been held captive, even longer than the Battle of the Last Alliance. Rivendell is a elven city in Eregion ruled by Lord Elrond, Sam added, when he saw Frodo was just as nonplussed as he was at this information they've both independently deduced. There is no greater news you can give me than that Elrond is still living. His eyes seemed brighter in a way that reminded Sam of a younger Pippin, finding out that yes, there is another biscuit still in the jar he had thought to be entirely empty. On this day you have given me 2 great boons, news of Elrond and my freedom. Are you his kin? Frodo inquired, for hobbits' love of genealogy runs deep. In a way we are distant cousins of a sort by blood, but there was a time when my younger brother and I were foster fathers for Elrond and Elros. I could guess at your name, Frodo said, casually looking at the elf out the side of his eye as he brushed his fingers over the hair of his own feet, knocking out some of the dust that has collected there. Not for the first time, Sam grieves the loss of their combs. You likely could, but I will not make you guess when you have trusted me with the nature of your quest. I stand before you, Maethros, Ianorian. His head is bowed and the fingers of his hand are trembling against the pocket where the star water lays against his breast. It glowed in gentle pulses that quickened with his heartbeat. Author's note. Yes, they did just steal Sauron's jammies. An eyeball has no need for jammies. Jim Jam's pajama. The end of chapter 2.